GACS and Shashidhar, I think this is it's wonderful to talk to this very esteemed group here. Quite a few people I know, a lot of them I don't know. So just a little bit about me. I'm an architect. How many architects do we have here?
Really?
Okay. we have two architects here. All right. And I'm also a project manager. So I've been a project manager for a couple of decades before I can see quite a few project managers.
Yes.
Second row.
Yeah.
And after 2 decades, a little bit more than 2 decades in the industry, I decided to step out, like Shashi mentioned just now, and not just share, but my passion is to see that we have, how do we empower our people, and that's going to be the focus of my talk as well. So how do we make sure? I think some here, as I mentioned just now, all of us have started as a project, facilities manager. In my case, I started as a project coordinator, doing paperwork, and then I went to site, and I actually looked at the cement and steel, and we started from excavation. Wonderful journey actually, and something that I'm very proud of as well. But then that's a whole lot of people today that I think we need to sort of empower and enable, and that's what my journey is about. And before I go further, I should also mention that Shashi chose to put, I wear 2 hats. We also started something called WiREnet World, which stands for Women in Real Estate. I see Devanshi is one of my co-founders. We are 7 of us. Devanshi for everybody. And we have the member here. We have support from Prerna and Madhusmita, and hopefully we will have more women joining the fold. The idea is to empower again women, help them in their professional journeys, help them grow, share knowledge, mentor as much as possible. And we are cutting across different silos and verticals of real estate. So we say women in real estate, it's not just meant for developers, it's meant for CRE professionals. We've quite a few CRE professionals, project managers, architects, construction, equipment, material, technology, the works. I think the entire fraternity. We need to bring women together. That's the objective. So those are the 2 passions, and those are the 2 hats that I wear. Coming back to project management, what used to keep me busy all these years? And being an architect, how was I using my creativity? Of course, I was more process oriented. As you might have noticed, the first slide, this previous slide had a date stamp. So, other than that, there is a creative side, and the creative side often gets used in problem solving, and I'm sure it's the same for all of you. What are the problems that I'm solving day to day? Simple things as finding out how can I improve designs, how can I make sure that whatever the architects are bringing to the table, that's actually meeting my client's requirement, meeting the goals of the corporate company that I'm working for. That's design management for you. How do we bring efficiency in the work that we do? How do we, on a day-to-day basis, make sure that we are improving or we are spending less, value engineering in short? How do we manage construction on site, which is time, cost, and quality? How do we look at bringing the right people onto our team? How do we make sure that they're working right? Or how do we make sure that our profitability is going up for the company on the leadership side? And finally, of course, business strategy. How do you make sure that you are aligned at all times? So these are some of the issues that used to plague me and that I used to work on, and I'm sure that's something that all of you as well work on, isn't it? And I'm sure there are many more like this. I'm from the project management side, on the facility management side, the challenges could be slightly different. And that's what keeps us busy. And like you rightly said, I think we are in the midst of a very volatile sort of environment, and we've been in that for the last 5 years or so. We saw a series of changes. Co-working came into the picture. The hub and spoke became something to talk about. We've been talking about work from home. We've been talking about millennials joining and their expectations being different. I think it's the only thing that is constant in the last 5 years that we've been talking is that every day there's something new for us to understand, isn't it? So, in an environment like that, while we are looking to add value and create an impact wherever we are, I have personally always held on to process. The process has been a big go-to for me. And when we talk about process, we talk about bringing more efficiency, reducing redundancy, standardizing the work that we do, especially whatever is repetitive, right? We talk about doing all of this so that it becomes easier for us to understand where we are, what we need to do, what our stakeholders are going to do, bring a semblance of preparedness in whatever we do, so that nothing that we do is ad hoc. That's what process and standardization are for, right? And you'll be surprised, there are still parts of the industry where processes are still written as we speak. Right? Processes are ahead, we know what needs to be done, but it's not established. So when I started out, the first 1 year I was just writing processes for a lot of people. And I think you will see that in almost all startups, growing companies, smaller companies, and design firms, where creative people do feel that we don't need to, put ourselves into boxes that processes define. But at the same time, like I said, there are pretty many advantages, and those are advantages that we must make use of. You will still be surprised that while we have processes, and I'm going to take 2 slides to explain, when we write out a process, what do we actually make sure that what do we have there. These are 5 tenets, and I'm borrowing from the project management book of knowledge. When you have execution that we talk about, whatever work it need not be project, it can be any work that you're doing. Make sure that there's a methodology which is listed. Ensure that there's governance models set up. Create a list of artifacts, which could be your formats, trackers, it could be your apps if you're using technology, and configure all of that. That is your information base, and make a system where you can transfer this knowledge. Knowledge is the entire idea of having a process or a standard in place is to make sure that it is not dependent on the individual who's performing, but you have a platform that allows anyone to apply. And again, this is a very nice visual. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but it very neatly organizes and gives you a flow path. And the tasks that you see here, the numbering is a little odd, is because it follows the project management book of knowledge. See that these are tasks that they have identified, but gives you a workflow. Again, when you have a process in place and the workflow is identified, what it really does in your organization is, between people and multiple stakeholders, it lays down very clearly what I'm supposed to do, what other stakeholders will do, and what can I expect as my responsibility versus other people's responsibility. Where to draw those lines, and also what should I expect to be measured on, right? So the deliverables become very clear. Before I go on to this, so the one thing that a process document really does for you, or establishing standards and processes will do for you, is it will help you become more efficient in the way that you work. It will help communication between parties. Right? However, this is something that I pulled out from the innumerable training programs that I've been running in the last few years, and let's say about 400-500 inputs. And this is coming from a list of questions that I give them before we start the training program, something like a pre-assessment. It helps me to understand what the base is. And what I have figured out is the knowledge of process, the buzzwords, is everywhere. Everyone knows it, right? What is JIT, what is Agile, what is Moto? Everyone knows this, they can use it. Everyone pretty much understands also, at least 60% can define those terms, they do know what they are. But where the failure really comes is here. Application of those processes, application of those concepts, tools and frameworks. I'm sure you would have seen it in your teams, or teams that you work with, external parties, vendors, name it, it's everywhere. Not something to be brushed under the carpet, I feel. Really, this is the place which we need to address. I'll give you an example. I just concluded a series of sessions for 200 CRE professionals of an organization. I don't know to name them here, and I also have a confidentiality agreement. But when I gave them these exercises, we have group exercises at the end of every session. So when we do these group exercises, I would say about 24 groups participated in them. In multiple exercises over multiple sessions, we were talking about the life cycle of real estate, and I was explaining processes through acquisition to facilities management, the entire life cycle. When we gave them problems to do, you will be surprised, there were only 4 out of 24 groups which got all of the answers right. So the problems were very specific, but to tell you in very brief, there would be something like how do you reduce the timeline taken for, let's say, leasing, or given a specific project or a site which is relevant to that particular company. Or it would be something about an issue in construction, management of a vendor or a vendor-related problem. Or it could be something specific like how do you reduce costs? How do you value engineer your designs in the future? So I accept that in real world there are no 100% answers, but given the fact this was a theoretical exercise and we have constraints written down, it should be fairly easy to come up with solutions, which one could argue in real life there could be problems, but then in the classroom it is feasible. Even then, just 4 out of 24 got it right. I would say most of them understood the problem, and they were able to articulate some amount of solutioning. So communication wasn't really an issue, but application of the process, application of the forms, formats which their company already had. They had pretty much standardized forms for everything. You can see that. Majority of the answers were also ambiguous. And if you put that kind of a solution in real life, you have ambiguity in solutions. We're not 100% sure this is going to work. Then you have the problems that we face on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, just 2 minutes for this. So that brings us back to this problem, which is, what is the issue? Is it people or process? Like I said before, process is a problem for many companies. We don't have that written down. But seems like even when there is a good understanding of process, there is a people issue. So I do tell everybody, if you have identified the process problem, please talk to your stakeholders to find out if there is an issue with them. If you find people are an issue or their capability is an issue, then find out if they are enabled, do they have the right structures. it could be a bit of both. And in that sense, I recently did a session with PMI earlier this year, and there were a lot of small organization heads and owners, and I asked them this question: if you identify people as your problem, would you hire experienced staff? Just hire somebody who's done this before, so the whats and the wheres are clearly explained, and they can dovetail very quickly. And so, like you would have noticed, that 75% of the people say yes, just hire somebody who's done this before. But is there a solution? A lot of people do also argue in favor of talent which is already existing, right? We have people in our teams who've been with us for long. Let's groom them, let's train them, let's, invest back in them. However, going back to the previous slide, seems like everyone knows what the terms are to be used. We don't know how to use them. So I would say, please, no more jargons. We don't want jargons. We want action. We just don't want buzzwords. And I might be jeopardizing my own business here because I do training. But all the same, this is not what I would like. I don't want people to just carry back some buzzwords and then, in their post-assessment, make sure that they're getting 100% questions right. You can Google all that. You can simply Google all that too. Right? We don't need this. What I would really like everyone to focus on is the why. That's what got me into problem solving in the first place. I'm sure that's what has brought you where you are today. The ability to look at why are we doing this? What is the problem? What is the goal behind it? How should we, solve that problem? Look at understanding the issue behind what you see. The hows and the whats will follow, for sure, once you've got the purpose. So I think we need to understand the purpose of these forms and formats and flow charts that we create, the process documents that we create. It's not just important to know, okay, maybe at some point it was okay when you didn't have this much flux. Today, with the amount of change we are looking at on a day-to-day basis, whether it's client engagement, whether it is, your clientele is changing every minute. You're talking about people who were born in the 80s, now 90s, and now, very soon, 20-somethings are going to be there. So you're pretty much like my son in a few years would be my client. So I need to know how to deal with that. And that goes not just for me, but for everybody else. So we need more emphasis on people, more than ever before, not just hiring. Of course, build the right teams by getting the right people, the right attitude, the right aptitude, the right skill sets. Do also give them the right framework. Nurture them, support them in growing, allow them to ask questions. Enabling is all about giving them the freedom to question. Question, ask, solutioning is going to come from them. When we talk about leadership, it's all mentorship, it's all coaching, and I would say all of us in this room wear those hats. Right? We just need to do maybe more of it or encourage more people in our teams to do. And finally, promoting the right talent, setting the right examples, and motivating them in the right way, I think is very important. I think we are saying things here which seem very obvious, but they are not done very often in the industry. So that's the reason why I'm maybe sounding very repetitive. Again, I think what this does is takes you through the whole thing, just like the process flowchart took you through stakeholder management, conflict management, it took you through understanding what is scope, how do you manage cost, time, and changes, etc. When you talk about people, it's also, again, understanding stakeholders, reaching out to people, empowering them, managing internal conflicts, and so on. And finally, to promoting your staff. So in summary, what do we have here? People and process do go hand in hand. Let's set the processes, let's build the right team and empower. Let's communicate and engage. I think communication is Captain did speak about bringing an app out to, it's just a communication too. We're talking about bringing an app which tells you what you have done. That's communicating with your customers in a different way. So let's communicate and engage and look at both aspects simultaneously, people and process, to identify where the issues. Thanks a lot for all of your time.